Welcome back, YouTubes. As you can see, I have made a little bit of progress on both projects, and we'll get to why that is in a little bit. I did move this red front end off of the Ramcharger onto this truck. Again, I'll explain that later. For the most part, the body mounts went pretty easy. I didn't torque them down yet because I wanted to put a front end on it first and just make sure it's sitting right. I kind of thought when I was putting them in that there was some kind of slop to the way these new ones mount versus the old ones. And I think after I put the last corner in, I realized it kind of locks it all in and it's not as much slop in there as I thought there was. But I put a front end on it anyways, just to kind of make sure it all lined up correctly. Another thing that wasn't quite like the instructions that came with it. I believe I bitched about this in the last video where they wanted you to reuse the OEM metal sleeves. Well, here in the Great Midwest, we have a thing called snow, and they put salt on the road, and pretty much anything and everything will rust on you. So I barely could come up with out of the two trucks that I've parted out in the last couple of years, I could only come up with two of the metal sleeves needed for it, and I had to come up with something for the other two that I needed, which wasn't that big of a deal. Just kind of put me behind a day or two. Not that there's any kind of time frame for this. It's just waiting around getting the right parts and all that. So we got that out of the way. Then when I get to the front radiator support, I didn't realize this at first either, but the washers must be reused too. Again, I do have a whole stack of different washers that came off of the different trucks I've parted out. They're all rusty metal piles of junk. More than likely, they'll end up in my scrap metal bins. But really, I think what you're supposed to use is these washers that kind of have like a pin to them, I guess you could call it, to line it up with the mounting holes, which, as you can see, out of all the trucks I've parted out, I have exactly one of those. So, and that isn't exactly going to work with the system they give you. So luckily, when I was at the hardware store getting stuff, I was smart enough to buy a few extra washers. And then I think I talked about this too in my last, but they had a set of newish body mounts, but they were missing like a lot of different hardware and stuff, and I really wasn't sure what I was missing, so I just went and bought myself a new set. But luckily, between the set I bought and a lot of these washers that were extra from their set, I was able to rig up something that worked pretty good here. Between the two. The bed isn't attached because as I was cleaning these up, I did run these through my dies to kind of clean up the threads. But what I found is either the die I have isn't quite right, or these bolts are rusted more than I thought, because it didn't take any metal off of them at all. And as I kind of pointed out in my last video, like some of them, like this one, they're hourglass shaped. I think there's two that are hourglass shaped, like these two right here. So I need to make my way to the hardware store today and get some new bolts for that. Otherwise, I would have had that done. Then I guess the crux of why this has a different rear end, and I put the brown one on this one, is I'm going to be putting this truck back together too. And I haven't completely decided yet, but I think I'm going to let this truck go down the road. Now, when I traded the 42, or when I originally put the 42 for sale, the idea was to get down to one project and one project only. And I kind of screwed that up on myself when I agreed to trading it for this truck, because I really wanted a short bed. I've wanted one for like a long time, and I thought it was a good deal. And also at the time, I thought this was something I could get on the road quick and easy and get it up and running, and I'd have plenty of time for this truck. And that is kind of not turning into the case at all. Then on top of that, some of the shit that's been going down at work lately, I need to... Well, one time is I don't have the time that I thought I had. I even turned down some side work this summer just because I wanted more time for this, and it just really hasn't translated into more time working on the vehicles at all. So I think in the long term, in case I have to quit my job and focus solely on my side hustle, what I could probably get for this would pay my bills for a month or two. And then at the end of the day, really, I got the same truck here. I got two of the same truck. The only difference is this has a built-in topper on it where this one doesn't. Otherwise, it's the same vehicle through and through. Now, I did kind of prefer having the Ramcharger just because I've never had owned a SUV type vehicle, and I've always kind of wanted a Jeep. Well, a Ramcharger is, if you've ever seen the meme, a Ramcharger is basically a Jeep but for dudes. So I thought it would be a cool vehicle. But, at the same time, I have always wanted a short box 4x4 too. So since this truck is the closest to being runnable, if I did have to get rid of one of them, it would be that, and I'd keep this. And which is another reason for the swap. This is the nicer front end, so I'm going to keep the nicer front end. So that's where we're at with all this right now. I don't know how much of anything I'm going to get done this weekend, so it might be a couple weeks before you see another video. I got a project I'm working on over in the side hustle shop that I got to get done for next week. And plus, I'm not really sure what I want to start tackling after I finally get that bolted down. I might pull the bed up, or not the bed, the tailgate off of this thing and fix this. This has got your standard problem where the rods in there get all screwed up and you have to replace the little plastic ends. So I got to do that to it so it's fully functional. So I'll get that done. I need to look up the torque specs of these body mounts, get those bolted down all the way. I'm not bolting this front end on just yet. Mainly because it'll be easier to work on that up there if these fenders weren't in the way. I can stand on the tire in the frame or whatever to get up there. I'm probably going to pull all this off again and get like the power steering all set up and proper. And I was thinking too, before I even get the radiator in here, I don't have lines coming from the transmission. I got to figure out what's going on with that. I thought this truck was all ready to go as far as that was concerned. Oh, and even before I get to that point, I'm going to put that transmission in it yet. And I might just pull everything out, connect it back up, and slip it right back in. It might be easier than trying to squeeze that transmission down in back of the the motor and in front of the transfer case, because I'm not going to put this transfer. I'm just going to leave the transfer case that's in there alone because I know that works. And I got to get some parts for that before I can even put that back together. Anywho's, I might have this 76 one sold. Like, I have a guy that messages me like every other day about it, but I don't know. He seems interested, but I don't know why he just doesn't come get the damn thing. Then I think, since I don't really know what I'm going to do after that, I'll probably start putting more of this back together. I want to get one of these hatches put back on there. And then probably start going through like tail lights. Maybe pick out the nicer set, put it on this truck, put one on this set. Then I can start making a pile for swap meet, because I do have several sets of tail lights there. Same with like dashes and all that. Start going through that, keeping the good stuff, putting like the good set on this truck, the second set of good stuff on this truck, and then whatever's left over can be swap materials. These are a pain in the ass to get up and down. I've also kind of toyed with the idea of pulling these down and getting these back mounted inside too. That would open up a lot of shelf space for me. So it'll probably be a couple of weeks before I do another video again. That's why I'm kind of out here this morning, kind of doing a quick video here. Yeah, so when I get more progress done, we'll be back and I'll show it off. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.